Inspector Marer held his reed pen tightly as he wrote on the piece of papyrus in front of him.
Inspector Marer spends the day with his file hauling stones in Tura North,
he wrote. Tura is a place along the Nile River in Egypt. It is famous for its limestone quarries. For several months now, Marer and the sailors have been traveling up and down the Nile, picking up and delivering goods. Marer looked out from the boat. He and his crew had been busy. Earlier that day, the men carried limestone blocks from the Tura quarry and placed them on the deck of the ship. Now, with their cargo ready, they rested.
Spends the night at Tura North,
Marer wrote. In the morning, they would sail again. They were taking the stones to Akhet-Khufu, the harbor at what we now know as Giza. Giza was the sacred place where the royal rulers were buried. These stones would make the finishing touches on the largest pyramid they had ever seen, Akhet-Khufu. The pyramid was being built for Khufu, the king of ancient Egypt. Inspector Marer and other Egyptians worshipped Khufu as a living god. The pyramid would be Khufu's final resting place, his tomb when he died. All of Egypt was helping in some way to build his great pyramid. Thousands of workers were carrying and laying stones. Hundreds of skilled craftsmen made the tools these workers needed, and many more people made sure the workers had enough to eat. Thousands of Egyptians helped raise sheep, cattle, wheat, and barley to feed the people who built Khufu's tomb. For centuries to come, the pyramid would be a symbol of Khufu's power. It would also be a symbol for what the ancient Egyptians built together. Next to this pyramid, buried beneath the ground, rested another incredible piece of history. Archaeologists would not find it for almost 4,500 years. A boat. This is the story of ancient Egypt's mysterious ruler, Khufu, and the clues he left behind.
Hi, young historians. Welcome to another exciting episode of Anytime Now. I'm Brooke, the co-founder of Honest History. In this episode, we are traveling back to a special moment in time. And I mean way back in time. Back to a time when incredible kings ruled the land. A time archaeologists are still trying to piece together to this day. Have you ever started working on a puzzle and gotten really frustrated? Or maybe a riddle has thrown you for a loop and it's tugging at pieces of your brain as you're trying to work. That same feeling is one that many archaeologists face on a daily basis. As new information and items are uncovered, archaeologists must piece together clues about the past. Sometimes these clues are easy to put together, while other times it may take years. And sometimes, right as the final clue is revealed, a new discovery is made and researchers have to start the process all over again. It's jarring work, but the work is vital in our understanding of the past and how the civilizations before us lived and thrived. While you're listening to this episode, imagine how you would feel if you were the archaeologist making new discoveries. Would you feel excited? Overwhelmed by your findings? Stressed that the world is counting on you to piece together this important mystery? Think of all the emotions you might feel if you were the one making these important discoveries, knowing that knowledge about the past would forever be changed thanks to your discovery. Now, let's hop in our time machine and head back in time.
The year was 1954. Kamal el-Malak had been watching the men dig for hours. They were near Akhet-Khufu, today called the Great Pyramid, on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. The Great Pyramid stood almost 500 feet tall, its triangular shape and white limestone walls shone in the sunlight. By this time, the pyramid had stood there for 4,500 years. People still wondered how the ancient Egyptians built this incredible monument. The ancient site was a popular destination for tourists. A road was being built so people could explore the area more easily. El-Malak, an architect, had been hired to oversee this building project. They were near the end of the 2-year project when the men made a discovery. Beneath the dirt, they found a wall made of mud bricks. They had found other walls near the pyramid, but this one was a little bit closer to the base. That seemed a bit strange. The men kept digging. Buried underneath the ground were 2 giant limestone slabs. Was this a roof to another structure below? El-Malak did not want to get his hopes up. People often thought they stumbled on something only to be disappointed. Still, he knew he needed to keep digging to find out. El-Malak and his team began clearing the area. They found 2 rows of limestone blocks. They began scraping down between 2 of the slabs. When the hole was big enough, El-Malak lowered himself in, headfirst. He began to scrape and cut away, working only a few inches from his head. It was slow work. He was tired, but he could not stop. Finally, he cut into the ground and broke through to the other side. Before him, there was now a dark hole. What was in there? And wait, what was that smell? El-Malak smelled something sweet. It wasn't dirt or stone. Then he knew. It was the smell of wood.
Bring me a mirror!
He shouted up to the men standing above him. They handed a mirror down. He shifted and squeezed his body so he could catch some sunlight from above, and used the mirror to shine it into the dark opening. As he moved the mirror, he finally saw something. The tip of an oar.
It is the boat!
He shouted.
It is the boat!
People had found boat-shaped pits before, but the boats were always missing. Until now, no one had ever found a pit with a boat still inside. El-Malak had so many questions. Who was this boat for? Was it for Khufu? Why was it buried there? What was it used for? They would need to get the boat out of the pit to really understand what they had found. As they started to dig further into the pit, they discovered that the boat was in pieces, 1,224 pieces to be exact. But it wasn't broken. It didn't fall apart. It was in pieces on purpose. The ancient Egyptians were skilled boat builders. They didn't use nails or pegs to build their boats. Instead, they tied the pieces together. This made it easier to take the boats apart. It took almost 2 years to get all of the pieces out of that pit. Next, the challenge was to put the boat back together. This was the job of Hag Ahmed Youssef Mustafa. He was the chief restorer from the Egyptian Antiquities Organization. Hag Ahmed knew that this was going to be a difficult task.
This job perhaps needed a shipwright, more than it did a restorer, at least for reconstruction,
Hag Ahmed said. He set off to learn from shipbuilders. For 3 months, every afternoon, he went to the boatyard by the Nile to watch, draw, and ask the boat builders questions. He started to build models of the ship and showed them to one of the builders. Finally, Hag Ahmed felt confident enough to begin putting the ship together. He started building, piece by piece. Sometimes, pieces ended up being too long or too short. That's when he'd realize he needed to begin again. It took over 10 years to put the boat back together. When Hag Ahmed finished, the huge boat was 19 feet wide and 142 feet long. If you stood it upright, it would be half the height of the Statue of Liberty. It was the oldest and largest intact ship ever found. Archaeologists still needed to answer the big question: what was this ship used for? Something about this boat was odd. There was no place for oars or for the rowers. There was also no mast or sail. If this boat was used in the water, how did it move? Some archaeologists started calling it the solar boat. This was the type of boat that existed in ancient Egyptian mythology. Ancient Egyptians believed that after you died, your body would rise again. That's why they preserved people's bodies as mummies. They believed people would need their bodies in the afterlife. After a king died, Egyptians believed that the king resurrected and traveled west across the heavens. It was a long journey, and Egyptians had only one way to travel long distances: by boat. Maybe, archaeologists thought, this boat was buried next to Khufu's pyramid because Egyptians believed Khufu would use it in the afterlife. But other archaeologists did not agree with this idea. The boat must have been used in the Nile River, they thought. Maybe it was used to travel to the sacred site of Abydos. Many Egyptians made pilgrimages to this place. It was where they believed Osiris, the god of the dead, was buried. Maybe the boat traveled to other kingdoms. Egyptians may have taken it all the way to the Red Sea. To get to the Red Sea, Egyptians had to carry their boats across the desert. They could not sail there. That's one reason why they tied parts of the boats together. It was much easier for people to take the boats apart and carry the pieces rather than carry the entire boat to the Red Sea. But there was still a problem. The boat did not have a mast or sail, so how was it supposed to move in a river or on the sea? Today, archaeologists are still trying to figure out the mystery of Khufu's ship, but they have another idea. Maybe the ship did not sail at all. Maybe it was pulled by another ship, and maybe it carried the body of Khufu. After he died, the ship may have carried Khufu from the east of the Nile to the west, where he would be buried in the Great Pyramid. Khufu's boat is now in the Grand Egyptian Museum, where tourists can marvel at this incredible piece of ancient history. But Khufu's body has never been found. In fact, there's a lot we don't know about this ruler. His pyramid, the Great Pyramid, is one of the most famous buildings in the world. But what kind of ruler was Khufu? Why did he build such a big pyramid? And the question that archaeologists have worked many years to answer, how did the ancient Egyptians build this pyramid? In 2013, archaeologists stumbled upon yet another discovery. Rolls of papyri buried in front of a cave near the Red Sea. Archaeologist Pierre Tellet and his team found the caves in the stone hills of the Egyptian desert. They were just a few miles from the sea. Ancient Egyptians stored their boats in caves like these so they did not have to carry their boats all the way back to the Nile. The ships would have been used on expeditions across the Red Sea to bring back turquoise, copper, obsidian, and ebony. By the time the archaeologists found the caves, the boats were gone, but pieces of wood and rope had been left behind. Buried beneath the sand, in front of one of those caves, they uncovered objects of everyday life. There were bits of boats, fishing nets, copper tools, wooden spoons, and cloth. Essentially, ancient trash. As they kept digging, Tellet and his team stumbled upon something else. They unearthed what later turned out to be the oldest papyri ever found. The papyrus was in fragments, but each piece was filled with hieroglyphs and what appeared to be numbers or tallies. After carefully placing some of the fragments back together, Tellet discovered that the papyrus contained the journal of a man named Inspector Marer. Marer led a crew of about 40 men who sailed along the Nile. His journal gave us another clue about how the Great Pyramid was built. Inspector Marer spends the day with his file hauling stones in Turin North. Marer had written, spends the night at Turin North. Marer's men had picked up stones from one side of Egypt and sailed to Giza, where they delivered the stones. These stones would then be used to build the Great Pyramid. It's not every day that archaeologists stumble upon such incredible discoveries, but with each new discovery, we come a little closer to answering our questions. In fact, archaeologists are still piecing the ancient papyri back together. Would you like to be an archaeologist when you grow up? Who knows? Maybe you can help find another piece of the puzzle. With your help, we may know a lot more about King Khufu, his boat, his Great Pyramid, and the people who built it.
Welcome back from our journey through time. It's me, Brooke, and I have to let you in on a little secret. I love studying ancient history. There is so much rich information about life in ancient Egypt, and archaeologists and historians are learning more about it each and every day. I think it was so clever of the Egyptians to piece their boats together like a puzzle so they could travel across the desert. What an ingenious idea! As we continue to learn more about the past, we get clarity about what life was like for people living in that period. And that information can help shape our world today. Studying the past is, in many ways, improving our future by having a better understanding of how kingdoms worked and what we can do differently to bring about positive change today. That's all for now. If you are itching to get more ancient, honest history, then check out our magazine's 4th issue, Story of an Empire. We talk about life in ancient Rome, and you'll likely learn a few fun facts about the diets of gladiators. Hint, it was rather green. See you all next time. This episode was hosted by Annelise Baer and written by Heidi Coburn. Production was led by Randall Lawrence. To learn more about this episode, including more about the host, visit us at honesthistorymag.com and follow along for updates on social media at Honest History.